regarding what we have discussed so far. Good evening to you too, by the way. Or everything clear? Because we have left off a little bit from the last session, which I actually would like to start with today. And after that, I would like to introduce our new topic. And the new topic is power. That's more or less a big fraction. And we look on rather subtle exposure of power in certain settings. We think about the source of power, because we discussed leadership negotiation a couple of times now. And power somehow plays a role, because you make people what you want that people do. Sorry, for you. But technically, it doesn't play any role, because you don't have power in a very classical sense. However, there are more ways of show and expose power. There are good ways to do that, and yeah, not so good ways. And that's what I'll look at. I have a couple of cases, technically two. One is from a submarine, and the other one is from a really short one with 2 pages from a management context. So this is what we have in mind for today, and there will be some homework, so to say, for the next session. There is a case or a video to watch. The video is a documentary about world wrestling. I know you might not be into world wrestling, especially the version that has happened in the, I don't know, 90s, 2000, when it had its high times. But the case is interesting because it shows interaction between a co-worker or a key worker, a very important one, that's Pratt the Hitman Hart, a famous wrestler, and the owner of the Wrestling Association. So yeah, that's leadership, negotiation, and interaction. We're moving then from the next session on slowly, very slowly, into negotiation. But this is something that already taps both boxes: innovation, leadership, and negotiation. So you can't download that. That's I read in that you can't download the slides. This is weird, because just let me check if there is something if I can do right now, because it technically should work. Otherwise, I will share it with you. I simply don't see the issue because it looks fine on my side. Let me just give me 1 second, and maybe we solve the problem really by just setting session 3. Is 4 elements on in my let me share my screen. Maybe we can figure the problem out this way, because let me share my screen. It looks this way. So you should have this is session 3 for Hanoi, and we have 4 different sessions in. Is anyone there who can tell me what I need to do? I'm happy to say it gives me a it is green, what symbolizes somehow to me that it should be fine. I can show you how it looks if we if I go back. Should be all fine. Yeah, that's Hanoi. That's you. I will send you everything via the chat here. and then I try to figure that out. If it's green, I think it should be fine, or at least there's little that I can do on my end. Let me upload that here, and then we are more or less good to go. Sorry for these issues. Here are the case studies that we need. So you need to download it here from the chat. Sorry for the confusion with the technology, but thanks for reminding me, because I was simply thinking it's fine. So you have it here. Okay, let's go back to the topic we have worked on so far. Leadership, you filled out already the metrics, and now let's see what this means for you personally, or how you are seen normally as a leader under the assumption that behavior matters. So it's a behavioral view. If you reject behavioral view in general, then you reject everything. If you are that comes now, if you are behaviorist, you probably agree completely with that, because then this represents your view and your understanding of how social action happens and works. So let me explain what happens here. We have a theory X and a theory Y, and we already discussed that X and Y imply certain leadership styles. For example, if you are strong on X, then you think people don't like to work. That's their natural habit. We need to control them. We need to have incentives. I have to measure their performance by putting some KPIs in place in order to track if they really work or if they're just lazy, so to say, in a very black and white way. The other thing is, you believe that people like responsibility. They enjoy being active, doing, creating, building something. If you do that, then you might have some open work groups where everybody can organize his or her particular work. The idea of X and Y is that you can derive leadership styles from those different extreme points, so to say. For example, if you are standing strong on a theory X, then you're more autocratian. You have a tight control in place. You are looking very much on performance. You are a little bit repressive style, and you definitely have no open culture, but more or less a very detailed culture that spells out what are the rules and what the goes and the no-goes are. And the other side would be Y. You are looking much more on developmentals than on control. Achievements are much more important than KPIs. KPIs is a limitation in the sense that you define what somebody should come up with. That's the KPI that you put in place. But creativity is so much richer. People can achieve certain things outside that what you put in place to measure their performance, outside the KPI. And this is something that is really important for a firm that is depending on creativity and innovation. You need to give a certain amount of freedom, simply because otherwise, you get what you get into what you put into the system. So the number of surprise, the number of is simply very limited if you manage and order everything with KPIs. This is something you need to take in consideration. There is one thing that this theory claims. If we understand where somebody stands within this behavioral logic, then we are able to anticipate his or her leadership style. That's the basic notion that the X and Y theory brings to the party. So this has been developed in several different further theories. They share all the same perception that I have spelled out now. One is the Ohio State University, and the other one is the Michigan University Studies. Pretty old ones, but still in place today. And if you have not run in your assessment center into the trade approach, the five dimensions, big five dimensions, then you probably have run into a behavioral approach. Is the pardon, so in you cover your assessment with one tool or with the other tool, or the family that is based on this logic. So what are these models doing? They organize, they locate people in a matrix. A matrix, as you have filled out, where you have a task-oriented leader or a people-oriented leader. And this is very much for, corresponding to theory X and to theory Y. Let me see what the Blake Mount managerial grid is doing, because it is based on concerns of people. You see, this is the Y theory, and concerns for results. That's the X theory. You are in fear that people don't deliver on the results that they should deliver because they're technically lazy. That's what you think if you're on Y. So what they are doing is putting this kind of matrix together. People either score high on performance or high on people. This is the extreme case. Both extreme cases, extremely X and extremely Y, would then be what is termed as country club manager or product or persist management. So you might be within these poles. There is those extremes, but there is some middle ground as well. I do admit that. But let's talk a little bit more about the XP points to start off in order to see what it means. One box is termed country club manager. So the big question is it good to be a country club manager? And the simple answer that is absolutely true is it is excellent if you are a country club manager and you have to manage a country club. That's perfectly fine. You on spot then. But if you have to manage something else, for example, a football club in a major league where performance is everything, then you can't be a country club manager. The only thing that you're looking at is what you see on the lower right-hand box. You bring your performance or you don't play next Saturday. That's what you need to have in mind. It's a performance-driven environment. So again, the logic is here very much the same that we have with the trade theory. If we do understand what we need, we can go out and identify proxies for appropriate behavior. That's actually the things that this series tells us, and that is more or less the hope that lies in all those theories so far. The big question is then, how do we understand what we are, what we need? For some fields, it is very much clear. Country club needs a country club manager who is there, who talks to people, who gives them a good time, who don't pressure anyone because people should enjoy their stay in the country club. Make people feel happy. That's his job. And there are many things in this relation. If you work in the front desk on a big hotel, yeah, make people happy. That's why they are there. So these environments are very much simple, but we normally are a mixture, or we face a mixture of those categories, and there is where it becomes very, very tricky, because to some extent, each firm needs creativity. You can't kill everything by KPIs. But at the end of the day, you also need somebody who works, and just being creative the whole day is not anything that leads to something. So this mixture between creativity and performance is something that that is the question how to manage this. Now look at the two boxes that we have spared so far. One of them is called improved management. That means technically you don't care about performance and you don't care about people. This is technically not much. So you should care at least for anything. So there is the question how you can move in a particular way, in a particular direction, because yeah, not caring is not a big advantage for a leader. If you are good in both things, that's actually nice if you are good in both things. But this is certainly that you end up at the highest left top box corner. This is very unlikely, because there is some tensions between. At a certain point, you can't do everything for people and at the same time everything for performance. There are trade-offs. So you have those tensions that can't be resolved. On the one hand side, people want to finish work on a regular working time. On the other side, it would be great for performance if they would work overtime. So how to balance that? In many ways, it's not possible. What's then left is the middle of the road management. I again would not say that this is the perfect way or the perfect leader that we should look for. I would say we should look for what we are needing. But the point here, and this is something that I would like to spell out with this matrix. The matrix can be read in a search function logic, that we need to find the people who matches the needs of our position. But we can read it in a completely different way as well. You can read it as a developmental matrix, where you're figuring out you are in one particular area. And then it's the question, the job that you are aspiring, what is the job requiring? Maybe the job requires you, in order to perform well in this job as a leader and in this in this role, you need to move. You need to move from a country club manager more in the performance area, because then you fit in what you personally aspire. This is a personal thing. You need to decide if you want to make that move, or if you're saying, no, I stay with where I feel better or feel home, rather than moving in something where I don't fit in. The point that is important here, the point that I actually want to make is, if you move, if you don't move because you think that's other things is not for me, the KPI world is not my world, then you should look for the right job, because you probably will fail in an environment that demands particular behavior. So we can read this matrix also from a learning perspective, and here you have your own evaluation according to the standard items that are normally used for that. You should take a minute, not now, but in general, if you're reflecting on your business life and what you actually want to do, and ask yourself, what does it take in my company, in my organization, to do a good job? What is seen to do a good job? Is this a performance-oriented environment? Or is this more a people-oriented environment? And how far is the point that I call personal, that's my personal home, so to say, away from the point of my organization? If this is far away, is this close? This gives you at least an impression how well you, from your personal reflection, would fit into this environment. And then the question, do you want to move? Do you can move? Do you should move? But this is a personal thing. For me, at this point, I can't answer the personal question. So I can't just spell out what these matrices mean and how people perceive leadership and how people make decisions in a business environment, when they're hiring people, when they assess performance, and if they expect performance. There is a second matrix that you have filled out, and this is let me come back to the first matrix. Are there any questions? Do you does it make sense? Do you agree to that? Do you think we have filled that out, but it doesn't make any sense at all? What do you think? Does it make sense to use such tools? Would you use such tool? Or is this give me just your idea. There's no wrong and no right. This is just a tool among many. But if we want to use it, we need to understand it, how it works. And this is the behavioral approach. Yes, please.
I think it's a bit theoretical, and it might be hard to assess our own performance and our own way of leading. So it's a bit hard to use, but it can be a good tool.
Yes, you're definitely right. It is a very abstract one. What it the usage would be probably only in an assessment area where you have to assess 20 people, which you don't know. There are 20 people who applied for one job. And then you ask them this questionnaire, and what you then get is more or less a map where you have some outliers which definitely don't fit in. You would then probably roll those outliers out and saying, okay, we just can interview 6 people. So how to make a decision, and then it plays into the decision who is to be interviewed and who not. It is not really precise. Yes, I would agree to that, but it adds up to a score that you get if we stay within an assessment logic for moving into the next into the next stage. I personally would not use that as a single tool to make any decision. The idea is the more bits and pieces you collect together, the better becomes your picture. And the alternative would be, yeah, I don't know, you roll the dice and take someone. So it works more or less in this direction. No, with this matrix, people do not influence the performance. We have one comment in the chat. Only task influences performance. Yeah, no, the idea is that the structures, the leadership, the way how you interact with people in terms of what rules, what processes, what control structures, what approach to leading do you put in place in order to increase performance. So it is what is that you do to get the performance out of others. So if your focus is fully on performance, then you probably put in a reward system for those high performers and some sanctions for those low performers. That could lead to you get promoted and you have to leave. Hire and fire would be your logic. If you think about the big consultancies, they often don't tell you, but often work in these particular things. You get in, and then you have a career path. And even if they don't fire you directly, if you stuck in this career path where you normally have 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years to progress from one level to the next level, then it is a sign that you should technically leave and find a better place, because you don't have a future there. Even if you could stay there, but you never make your progress from one level to the next level. That's a particular structure that somebody puts in place. And the reason why it is put in place is because the focus on performance. A country club would never work in this particular way, because the idea is that people feel well there and not that they squeeze some performance out of them. So that's more or less the logic. You don't do the task, and you don't influence. You influence performance not directly, but by the rules, the culture, the processes, the structures, the communication, everything that you put in place. This would be the idea. I hope that answers the questions. The question. So okay, perfect. Then let's move on to purpose versus process. You could also locate, or what you have done, bring those things together in a logic of process and purpose. If you are, we have discussed the distinction between managers and leaders. And you see here, there are two boxes. The one is focusing on processes and on purposes. Processes is management. The manager gets up in the morning, gets into the office and try to manage, organize the day-to-day business as good as possible. This is the guy who loves efficient processes that work automatically, because that makes his life very, very easy. The process works perfectly, everybody follows to perfect and is highly efficient. The manager is very happy. So focusing on processes. If you score high on processes, you're probably better in managing things than in leading things. The leader is looking on purpose. This is the other extreme, the other gray box, where you score low on process but high on purpose. That means and purpose. If you have one-off situation and events, then you don't have a process for that. That doesn't make sense to have a process for something that happens just once. So if you don't have a process for something, you need still to give people guidance. And the guidance that you give people happens through purpose. You spell out the purpose. What is the purpose behind all that? And if you all agree, we navigate our ways through this situation. But this is leading, not managing anymore. The point, we have a comment here on should higher level manager focus on leading or managing. The point here is style is something that to some extent enriches management behavior. This is definitely a point, because it's not just that you do things efficiently, but also how you do those things. So this has a slight effect on standing in both boxes, even if it probably not compensates a pure manager for the lack of leadership. But still, it doesn't help to get the foot in both boxes. It is for higher level managers, we have the problem, or the same question that we had with one of the previous tasks. That is, if you are a higher level manager, and then you manage very complex elements, overlooking a lot of different operations, processes, and so on. That's fine. You tick one box that is important for the organization. But someone of those higher level managers need to wear the leadership hat. It needs to have a leader, because we have both the standard situations and the one-off things that need purpose and direction in a different way that the processes provided. An organization needs to cover both fields, both areas. Not everybody needs to do the same thing. That's an important thing. It's not the job that everybody does the same. You can specialize, that you are more focusing on managing the complex stuff if somebody compensates for the lack that you have in leading. So it would be great, to be very honest, to have somebody who can wear both hats. This would be, if we look into the matrix, that would be the right-hand side top box. You are likely inefficient leading and managing. It is a difficult relationship, as it says, because that's not a self-assessment, that's an assessment from others. That's hard to reach. It's often not the case that you reach the perfect box, so to say. It is the case that if you don't reach that, your organization needs to make sure that it has people who covers both. So if you take two people, one from each of these gray boxes, you combined have covered the whole field, and this is good. That's perfectly fine. That's you should to look for. from my experience, I can tell you from my experience, for an organization, organizations tend, if they are in a hiring process and if they are looking for someone who can do certain jobs, they try to find somebody who can cover all boxes or tick all boxes. This is normally very hard to find. This exists, but this is very hard to find. What you most likely end up, you don't find what you actually want to have, and then you settle for someone who has skills which not top in any field, but at least he ticks some boxes to some degree. There are trade-offs to a situation where you accept that the perfect leader would be nice to have, but your competitors don't have them. You probably don't find them, and you might be settled for a solution where you look for here an expert and there an expert and try to divide the fields in a particular way, and accepting that you not are successful with your dream manager. But normally the tendency is to say we need some high potential who can do everything. Yes, they exist, but they're hard to find, and most likely you won't get them. That's just from my point. Now the question is, what is if you're in the low box? You don't care about purposes, and you don't care about processes. This might be the case. It's not a bad situation, because this allows you still to be an expert. If you have an expert, then the expert says, it's an IT expert. He is very down in any in some technical solution. He's probably not good in management, but he don't have to, and he probably not good in leading. Why should he? He's an IT guy working on some complex algorithms. He don't need to. So it's not bad to be in this box. It's just for a purpose of a leadership class, you're not the right person. If it is true what the questioner figured out. I wanted to alert you that these tools and those thinkings exist. They are applied heavily in human resource management, but they also applied in organizational management, in organizational change management, and so on all places where you reflect on your organization, on the structures, on the people. If you ask, why do we have them? Why do we look like we look like? Probably because you put the people in power that have these thinking, these behaviors, and bring them to everyday work. For change management, those things play a role, because if you want to look differently, you might restructure the way how you put people into power. Or you at least want to reconsider that. And here, those models and those framings make a lot of sense. So that's what we left off in the last session. Are there any questions so far? Does it make sense? Are you happy with your location in this grid? Is this something that reflects you? Or would you say, that's not me, I don't know what they made up here, but this has nothing to do with me? Or do you, yeah, just if you have an opinion to that, I'm happy to hear that. If everything is clear and you opinionless, then we also could move on to today's session. This is just to give you a picture what behavioral approaches are doing. And by the way, that's not the only behavioral approach, that's just one. But the logic, if you have understood the logic where they are coming from, between those two worlds of motivation, what motivates people, then you arrive with every other tool at more or less the same conclusion. If you change the motivators, because there are other motivators as well, altruism would be something like that. For a servant leadership style, you of course have a different approach in there. You can change the motivators, then you end up at a different destination, but the logic stays the same, that people are located within a matrix and that you need to have some fit and that you need to understand where the outcome is coming from, tracing it down to the motivators that motivate behavior. That's more or less the core element of those theories. So if you know one, you know, it is hard to say if you know one, you know all, but the principle is something that definitely will pop up in different formatships. Nothing to add from your side, then let's move on to today's session. Let me see how we should start off, because technically I would introduce leadership and power. Let us start with the case. The reason for this is, otherwise I will talk a lot, because I already talked quite a while. Let us read the case and answer a few questions regarding the case as an introduction, so you have something where you get active and don't have to listen for hours to me. It's a case that has just 1 page and 3 questions. It's a vice president, and the vice president appears as a powerful person. You should think, what is the source of power? What is the relationship between the power and the corporate culture? And what is possible ways how to develop a new power source? So this case introduces the idea of power sources. Power needs to come somewhere, from somewhere. And the question is, where is it coming from? There are simple powers. You have power because you have a certain position, and a certain position is equipped with a particular power. You are a policeman, and that's why you can stop cars. I'm not a policeman, I can't stop cars. The power to stop a car is located with position that a policeman has. So if it is very much detached from the person, because everybody who wears a police uniform has this particular power, and you leave it if you leave the role. But there are other powers, like expert powers. An expert power can't be easily transferred from one person to another person. So if I'm not an expert in physics, that's not my power source, and nobody can give it to me. So in this sense, we need to understand in these sessions what sources of power exist, which one can we use, which downsides and upsides do these sources have, and what can we do to utilize them. And this is a very much important question for style later on, because there is very much a difference if you have a powerful position by law or you are an expert, because people naturally trust in experts, and they just stop the car because they know they get trouble with the police if they don't do so. So that's more or less the logic between the power sources in which you want to dive deeper in. So we have 7:10 in Vietnam, I guess. Let's take 20 minutes to read the case and to discuss this in your group. I guess 20 minutes to come up with the solutions for the 3 questions, and then we dive into today's topic. So please be back at 7:30. 20 minutes. Any questions left? If not, see you back 7:30. Let me. You have the case here to download in the chat, or if it works now, Canvas, then please use Canvas. See you in 20 minutes. I'm here at the computer. If you have questions, you let me know. Okay, power. Are you back from your brief discussion on power? What do you think about the new vice president? What do you think about the case? Is this a likely event, or do you know people like her, or is this very much made up? What is your feeling about this particular vice president?
I think that's of course there is some person like her, but in this case maybe this case he add this to make the issue more difficult, more difficult.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I would agree. Even if the case is a little bit over accelerated, these kind of people exist, and I do know such kind of people. This could be, yeah. I personally would say if you have bad luck, your new boss, and maybe some of you have already experienced some person like this. What do you think about her? What is she doing right, and what is she doing wrong?
Well, I think like all the rules that she apply in her office, they are not wrong. They are the right rules, but the way she applies it like too strong, like from the beginning. Like she doesn't give time for the staff to get used to her or her style, but cohesively like use those rules against them. So I think like it may trigger something bad from the staff sooner or later.
I would definitely agree with your point. It's not a question of right or wrong. I would interpret this a little bit more as a question of fit. Somehow, from reading this short passage, you get the feeling it doesn't fit in this organization what she is doing. That's not a qualification whether it is right or wrong. It's just not fitting. And not fitting, as you mentioned, could have a couple of reasons. One reason might be that leadership is a learning process, and you can't get in and change everything 100 and hope that people will love it. It's a process, and people might learn, and you should also be able to learn. So changing everything from day one to day completely is maybe a little bit over the top. It means you can't change things, but not everything has to happen before you know your people right. In this sense, I definitely would agree. Let's dive a little bit deeper, because a couple of things are here to unpack. If you think about the sources, what is the source that for power that she uses?
I think the source of vice president power come from the first CE, the one who make the final decision. She can change the design of the office. She can relocate and make the room for the office. Besides that, I think maybe she a good expert, because for example, she want everything is done right at the first time. About the rule, she make some make sense. For example, the dress code, the policy and procedure are in place for a reason. Some not right when she wanted the thing done right the first time, but I think maybe she a good expert, and she confident for this. So yes, there are two parts of the vice president power.
Yes. And that's a good observation. Yes, and you're right. It's position power at the end of the day. She get the power from the CEO, from the person who puts her into place. She has the right to decide those things, the dress code, the office, the everything that she puts in place, because she's now the new vice president. Full stop. End of story. That's it. So it's a position power. Position power makes sense. Certain positions need to have power, as we discussed with the police. If they can't stop you, they not technically can't do their job. So we need to give them some powers, and other elements or other roles in an organizational context need power as well, simply because they can't do anything without power. So that's not a problem. Certain positions need and must come with power, but there's a bit but to that. What do you think is the problem with position power? And if you contrast it with expert power, you don't have the precision, but you're an expert. That you might be also powerful because people listening to you. You're the expert. It's always good to listen to the expert. It's like a doctor. The doctor is the expert on a health disease that you have. There is no point in not listening to your doctor. So the doctor has an influence on you qua his expertise. And we all learned it makes somehow sense to listen to our doctors. He can't force us to do us. He can't force us to do the surgery. But if you go to the doctor and they explain it is absolutely crucial for your health to undergo this surgery, yeah, many people listen to them. So it's expertise, and expertise is also a source. What is the problem with role power compared to expertise? The biggest difference is if it's only linked to the role, you could technically put everyone in. It's not justified automatically that somebody has this particular power. Technically, you could put in, I could put a donkey into power because he has the role, but it's not justified in any internal way. We wouldn't trust this donkey in power, even if he is now the powerful guy in the room. It is different if the power source is attached to the person, the expertise. This is something justifiable. This justifies and credits the person itself. The role itself is not automatically crediting the person that has this role. And this is for followers an absolutely important point, because the reason why I should follow you is something that is motivated from a trust that you know what's the right thing to do. You're not just a person who can enforce what needs to be done. I give you an example what I mean here. If you are the powerful person because you have the role, then I might follow you, and because I fear the consequences that I get not following you, and you are powerful, so it's better for me not to have these consequences, so I follow. But I follow exactly so long as I have to follow. I stop at the point where I don't have to follow anymore, as long as I don't trust you. I listen to my doctor probably all the time because he's my doctor, and I also listening to the advice if he's not there and he can't control me and he doesn't see what I'm doing. Because if it's really a serious disease that I have, I need a person that I trust. And if I have found this person that I trust, then I stick to that, not only as far as it pushes me, but beyond this pushing, simply because I have an intrinsic motivation to do the best for my personal health. And this is a very much a different when it comes to leading, that even if you have the powerful role, it is technically not enough if you really want people to follow. So this leads us to our second question. And the second question, what else could she develop as a power base? Oh no, the second question is first, what is the relation between her power base and the corporate culture? What do you think? The role power and the corporate culture. Any ideas? What have you discussed in your groups? What do you think?
I think it's already affected some part of the corporate culture when no one wants to talk and everyone.
Yes, you are right. It changed. What you mentioned is a symptom. You mentioned a symptom that her power pops up in the way how it changes culture. So in this particular way, we could make the point, or the point that you make is that her power source is not well aligned with the culture, because the corporate culture is built around a certain power situation. And if you would represent the power that the corporate culture is built around, then you should have no symptoms or no side effects. It should go hand in hand and fit neatly together. But this disturbance and the tensions that we're seeing popping up shows that there is not a well alignment between corporate culture and the power source. Yes, she introduces a very hierarchical management, and probably in a situation where the management before was not hierarchical. This causes these confusions, and people go back to their offices, stop talking, and it changes something. This is an important thing. The question is here, what is it that a wise leader is doing? What would you recommend here? Or what would a wise leader do in her situation?
I think because she's new to the office, so maybe she should show something that people trust and respect her some way, like show her experience or skill and talk more to it.
That's always a good advice. If you're new to the game, just look what's going on, and then try to fit in by expertise, because people like expertise. If you have real expertise, nobody is. That's what people very much appreciate, always and everywhere. Nobody is mad about an expert. That's better if you come over this from this angle rather than from a purely power role that technically the donkey could do. There's another aspect regarding different viewpoints. We, as the third observer of what is going on, we could say there is something going wrong. But who is wrong? Is the leader wrong, the vice president, or is the culture wrong? Sometimes the corporate culture is wrong. That's not the right culture that happened within an organization. So there is something wrong, but what is wrong? And I would claim, and you can agree or disagree, a wise, reflective leader would figure out that there is something going wrong and can anticipate that either the leader needs to change or the corporate culture needs to change. In a situation where the vice president comes in a working, functioning corporate culture that function, that is good as it is, changing that by bringing in these tensions with the misalignment, with the misfit of how she interacts in a hierarchical way, would be wrong. It's working. Don't change a winning team. That's the maxim of every sports club. If it works, it works. Leave it alone. Then she has no justification for her leadership approach. Then she's doing something wrong. This is definitely a clear thing where we can say, okay, you are not a good leader in the situation. You are the wrong person for this job. And we probably make a mistake putting you into this role. In a situation where the corporate culture is sick, the culture is not working, changing the culture by a different leadership style is exactly the right thing to do, because the culture is sick. My critique, and you already mentioned this, my main critique, if you go through the case and if you think about the power and so on, the first thing that we observe here is it is wrong to get in at day one and change things before you have learned whether or not things working well or things are working not well. If you, before you have understood what's going on, you should definitely do nothing, then sit there, be quiet and observe, and then make a wise decision, because yeah, otherwise you might be the problem, not the solution. What other sources of power could and should she use? What would you recommend her? We see that getting in with an absolutely hierarchical approach at day one might be not the best thing to do, or at least give it a little bit more time. But what would be a better way to step into power? Any idea? What would you say? It's the question of what other kind of power sources do we have? What other sources of power can you think of? There are definitely more, for sure. But what else can you see? Please.
I think that she can play a role to have people good in their position, because as in my opinion, she may be a good expert. Instead of only making a rule, she can understand the company and have the staff to develop themselves.
Yes, this would be a way forward. So you more or less delegating. Cohesive power would work in this direction, and reverent power would also work in this direction. You can also expose power by having a relationship with your co-workers or with your staff, taking a leadership role in the sense of a role model. So you live the culture as a role model rather imposing the culture on other people. This would be a different. I mean, it would be the same thing, but perceived in a different way. To restructure the team, yes, this would be nice, but to be honest, again, you need to know first, should you really restructuring the team? Maybe it's a perfectly working team, then there is no point in restructuring. The team is not there to serve the vice president. The team and the vice president have to serve the organization. So in this sense, the team, if it needs to be restructured, it needs to be restructured. I would definitely agree on that. But I'm cautious that you understand how when teams need to be restructured, at least not at day one. That's something that you see over a longer period of time. Expertise, reward power, cohesive power, position power, referential power. These are the power sources that we have. Reward power could be, for example, you don't do anything, but you reward people who behave in the right direction. You have the power to reward someone. And you reward those people that do exactly what you want them to do. Because if others observe that you get rewarded by a certain behavior, they might change their actual behavior, because they know, if I'm never been rewarded, I fall behind and I'm not, I don't fit in anymore, and they might make steps to fit in. The reward power is not a hierarchical approach. It's just appreciating those people acting in your interest, and it is perceived in a different way. It's much more subtle compared to a situation where you push things from top to down. Let me have a last question, and we dive a little bit deeper into power. My last question would be, why is she behaving as she behaves? Why is she behaving as she is? Is this a natural thing? Is this her personality? How can we explain her behavior? By now, by the way, you might want to explain this by X and Y theory, because this tells us very much how she sees herself and what is her basic philosophy of how people see work. So you can reference this X and Y theory that we already have discussed. You can reference trait theory. Then you say that's your personality. She can't break out of that. That's simply what she is. She's not much agreeable. She's more dominant in the sense that she tells you what to do and not the other way around. So she's not agreeable. She's not listening to anyone. That's personality. You can explain it by the trait theory. But how can we also explain it on much more practical rather than theoretical grounds? Any idea? Any attempt from your side? From a practical ground, I would say she has fear. She has simply fear, because that's what you very often observe with people who get new power, a new important role for the first time. They have fear that they now stand in this power and need to protect themselves. The old guy who is since 30 years in business, he lives and breathes this confidence in his leadership. He don't need to go that over the top, because he knows about his capability and his way of doing things. To office and income. Yeah, that's the reward power that you mentioned here in the chat. If you can reward people or benefit, yeah, then you have power, because who would be mad with you if he gets rewarded from you in significant ways? But stay for a second with the idea of fear. Position power protects people who actually have fear, who don't have a self-confidence that they can get in and stand there completely naked, so to say, and still stand their ground. It's kind of a power thing that you use to protect your position on your level in the organization. So this is a natural thing that many people get in this way, because it's scary if you get in the first day being the vice president. The important thing is, many will, after they develop the role, they understand their role, they will turn it down a notch. Maybe it is 100% trait related and it comes from her personality. Then of course she never moves, because her personality don't move. But for many people it is more or less true. If they grow into the position, they are able to let the fear go and see that gain some self confidence. In this sense, role power is also a protection, and the execution of power is also a protection of the people who uses the power. We need to keep that in mind as an important thing. And again, style is helping you here, because if you have a consistent style, it protects you from going over the top in self protection. Style is also something that is protecting, as we have discussed in the last session, because it gives structure, it orders things and expels out what is right or wrong. It gives a protection against chaos, in the sense we have discussed it. willpower can do the same thing. And what we have seen here, it's probably to the negative. But we have not seen anything unusual. Does this make sense so far? Because now I would like to dive a little bit deeper into power. The question, let me see how long we will need for that. I guess we need 15 more minutes for going through the short scenarios and understanding leadership and power a little bit more in depth. What I would like to do is spell out the power roles and how they relate to leadership. Should we go 15 more minutes and then we have 20 minutes break? Or do you want to break first?
Maybe we have the breakfast.
Is this common sense? Then we can have the break first.
Yes.
Okay. 20-minute break. So we are back at 8:15. 8:15ish. No, it's better to be precise. 8:17 to be very precise. Enjoy your dinner and see you in 20 minutes here, and then we move on with power. See you after a break.
Yeah, see you.
So let me turn on the light. It's really terrible weather here, so maybe it's a little bit better. So welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your dinner. Let's dive deep into power for the rest of this session. Power and influence. That's actually two words that very close together but don't mean the same thing. Power is the ability of one person to influence people to bring about a desired outcome, meaning you make people what you want them to do against their will. So it's not matter. It's only focusing if you get what you want, and it ignores the question whether the people want the same thing. You can get your will against their will. Your will decides at the end of the day. Influence works different. If you think about how influence works, then influence, let me share my slides here, is the effect that a person's action have on attitude, values, beliefs, actions, and so on. So if you change your belief, then the idea is you change your actions, because your actions need motivated by something, and it's motivated by your beliefs, your values, and so on. So if I'm able to change in what you believe and what you trust in your values and so on, then I change your actions, and maybe I change it in a particular way so it suits my purpose. That's what influencer on Instagram and YouTube do. They influence your beliefs about products, about whatever things, social, I don't know, gossip stuff, and thereby influencing your action. That's more or less the difference. So it's technically not good to enforce your will against the will of others, because if you do that permanently, because you're extremely powerful, yes, that's not a question. So yeah, then you create a certain environment or culture that people dislike to some extent. If I overrule you permanently and I make you to do what I want against your will, you do it as long as I'm powerful. If I lose my power, I lose my way of directing you. You stop automatically once I lose my power. The influence works differently. If I'm able to change your belief, then beliefs are normally lasting. They are long-lasting. Over a long time, they define and change your action, and you get the desired output not just once and as long as I make pressure, but over a long time. We also can see it from a leadership point of view. If you execute power in the sense that the VP does, and people stop once you are not there, then you need to be there every time. You have to be powerful all time, and your power needs to be present. If it's gone, everything falls apart. If you change beliefs and you have changed the beliefs, the culture, the values of a group, then you can disappear as a leader. And the group is functioning in the same way because values, beliefs are stable entities. That's an important distinction. I just want to make one thing decisive. You might know Mexican waves in stadium where people go out and wave their hands and shout, and the Mexican wave goes around the stadium. That's a very powerful thing. That doesn't have a leader. That is a self-organizing effect. But there must be one person who is the first person who stands up, who starts that, who initiates that, and then 10,000, 20,000 following. This particular guy has an influence on the whole stadium, so to say, a very powerful. He's not a leader. He cannot dictate something, but he initiates a social movement, a physical movement. You technically get up your seat and sit down to your seat. this initiating this movement is extremely powerful, and you can do it without having a particular role, without being powerful in any way. For leadership, this is very important because it shows that you can do with small things outside of power, creating great movements. That is also something for influencing and power that we need to keep in mind here. So I would like to go with you through a couple of scenarios. We have discussed already some power elements, so we don't have to spend too much time there, but I would like to do one thing with this exercise, or what we are doing together now. I would like to root and to contextualize power in a particular management situation, a situation that is very close to negotiating. Actually, we're entering here negotiating in this sense, because people sit around a meeting table and need to make decisions. And people have interests, and they try to enforce and push their own interests. And that's how they do it, and how how situations work. There is subtle power involved. You can position yourself by understanding the power source that other people play. And this is actually the important point. If people are built on a power source as their legitimacy for executing power and influencing people, then the target of your counter moves could or should be the power source that they have, if your power source is not by accident bigger than theirs. Let us see what this means. So we have a situation where Jill's the manager of operations. She says in a meeting after some minor chit chat. She says, "Let me start. I have facts and figures here that I received from the company. They showed that the production cost of our new and improved backyard golf green, I'm reasonably sure I can bring in the manufacturing cost of this product at $30. I've had a primary meeting with my production staff, and they too are convinced that these costs are accurate. That ought to make your marketing people happy." What kind of power is Jill demonstrating here? How did you arrive at the conclusion? What is Jill doing? How is she arguing on this meeting test? What do you think? She needs to argue. She wants to push her idea about operations and through in the management meeting. How is she doing that? Any idea, any clue? She's very, okay, I give you the first, you give me the second. She's built things on numbers, on figures. This is the acceptance that her power role is not enough, that she can't reward somebody or some else, that for her, the best approach to influence people on a meeting table is through expert. I have numbers that you don't have. That makes my knowledge better than your knowledge. That's enough reason to follow my suggestions and my advice, because who wants to mess with figures and facts? I have them, you don't have them. So yeah, it's naturally me who presents the next steps or the way forward. That's a particular structure here when it comes to power. I can't recommend you enough, and this is actually an important task to do. To sit in the next meeting, take a pen and a white paper, piece of paper, and try to write down what are the power sources are that your fellow team members try to use, and how others take their counter moves. there is a structure in every negotiation, in every organization. If you understand this structure, you can play the game. That's an important thing, and it helps to sharpen your senses for this. I definitely can't stress this enough. Let me see in scenario 2 what happens. In the same meeting, Dolores, the director of finance, says, I think that we can get the cost even lower by doubling the initial run to 100,000 units. It's what do you think? What is Dolores making of a point?
I think the Dolores have the best the knowledge than the previous one.
Yes, somehow she's director of finance. That means she has to say. That's the first thing. She's legitimate say to something about cost cutting, because finance costs, this goes hand in hand. And she has a supportive argument for chill. So if you're on the other side, because you're the marketing department, now you're facing two experts. That adds a strong alliance where you have a finance manager talking about costs and an operational guy talking about facts and figures. So the numbers are not on your side if you have a different point of view. So the question is, how could you deal with that? How could you deal with that if you sit on the other side of the desk? So let's say what happens if we go further. Later in the same meeting, after 3 different cost-cutting proposals were presented and met with resistance, Jennifer, the director of consumer service, says, we can also cut costs by using cheaper components, but that will only open the door for more service problems. Let's discuss that angle while we're on the subject. So what is she doing?
I think she is exposing some coercive power that if we do something wrong, we may have some like problems.
Yes, absolutely. This is what she's doing. And she does it technically in a very smart way. She somehow accepted that against operations and finance, she's not an expert. So she can't mess on operation and finance ground with them. She's simply not the expert here. But if she managed to pull the discussion over to the marketing or the consumer side, where you have the problems and the customer service and so on, that's her expertise. So cost cutting and finance, that's all nice, but what does it help if customers go mad because they get bad product, bad quality or a bad product? So she plays technically the same game, but she has understood that the discussion needs to turn into a different direction. Otherwise, she would lose ground. She's on the side not to fully cut costs and have a better product. And the point that she can't make it on finance grounds. That's not working on an operational grounds. But moving the discussion is a smart move. And from a strategic point of view, and again, you should sit there and observe those things. That's actually just in an abstract level, the question, what could I do to influence discussions, to move them away from one side to another side, and then test it, throw something into the discussion and figuring out how you could influence people. What is the best way that people trust in you? Some people are natural experts. Some people we trust because they are trustworthy. What is your superpower? That's the question behind that. What is the way that you could influence people? But it only works if you have a kind of a mind map, how are things, how the game is played and how you fit into this game. I can't stress it enough. Let's move on to the next scenario. After Jennifer and the others continue to discuss cost, Jill says, look, if you put cheaper motors in the pudding cream, it will overheat. Our quality group has reviewed the product and it's solid. We can't put cheaper motor into this product. Changing the motor from the specs I have provided would be a bad decision. again, this is probably also, I would say, somehow intimidating, because you now have two opportunities. You agree to her, or you make a bad decision. So what should you do? This is if the way how she presents is very much an aggressive one that puts you in, yeah, you can be the idiot, or you follow my advice. Yeah, what should you? This is offense. This is not defensive argumentation like the previous one. This is very offensive in the way how she addresses people. And Jill says, in the light of what you're saying, Jill, I'd like to contact our distributors and assess their repair facilities. Jill replies, with some controlled anger apparent in her voice, what do you have against my department servicing the Gulf Stream? It's about time we proceeded and handled the repairs in the right manner. We can do all of the servicing in operation. It fits perfectly with downtime periods and allows me to use my production workers better. Why should I turn over this crazy work to incompetent distributors? Again, Jill becomes really nasty about that. So what is he doing technically? What is what if you take those both comments of her together? She becomes quite nasty. Yes, that's obvious, but what kind of power does she use? Technically, this is reward power. If you follow and do what she wants, she rewards you by not getting mad at you. If you not do what she wants you to do, then she gets mad. Then she becomes nasty, and he puts you in the situation that you only use, I don't know, incompetent competitors or suppliers, and that you do the wrong decisions. And if you follow her and do exactly what she wants, then you are rewarded with not being attacked by her verbally and publicly. So this is reward power. That's, by the way, a very good sign if somebody does this in a negotiation or in a management or table. He or she has no other power sources. So instead of being intimidated, it makes sense to reflect what else could she do to get her to her goals or her opinion across. And if you have nothing left, no other power sources, then being aggressive, offending the other side is the things that are left. That's the last resort that you have. That's reward power in the sense you do what I want or I shout at you. But it is also a sign for a very, very weak position. Yeah, people who normally shout has nothing to say. That's comes to very close to this conclusion, and might be explained with the lack of power sources. Two more, and then we're done with that. As the discussion continues, Dolores asks, what kind of delivery are you anticipating for the new pudding dream? And when do you want to plan, when do you plan to make your first shipping? Jill indicates that her best delivery would be 6 months from the final drawing and prototype delivery to her department. She supports the decision as the conservation continues by saying, we've never introduced a new product in less than 6 months. I don't think you people understand all the things that are involved. I may take us a couple of months just to find a supplier for the cheap motor. So again, Jill tells everybody that they don't understand what they get themselves in. I don't think you people understand. That's a quite offensive phrase. That's somehow experts on the table, and they don't need Chill to tell them that they have no clue what they are talking about. Again, Chill stays in on brand, so to say. The last one, Mandolin, the marketing director, has been very quiet, which is most unusual for her. She finally says, I'm so pleased that we can move forward with this new product. I have a large number of unused boxes from the early model. If we are able to build and design in a way that lets us use the 30K boxes we have in the warehouse, I think we're all being given kudos as a design team. Mandolin, at the end of the day, brings things together. And by the way, that's actually negotiation, a very important point. She was sitting there, was quiet and observing that you have two fronts and you don't get them together. You have to bring Chill down, and the other finance department is very much on their position that it needs to be cut. The cost needs to be cut, no discussion, because that's the only way forward. So what she's doing is she's showing a way forward by being quiet, took herself out of the fight, so to say, and her power position. And this is actually the last thing, and then we move on. Her power position is well chosen, because if you reflect on what she's doing, as not taking part for any of those sides, lead to a situation that the both opposing side at the end might have only her, where both cannot agree to. Chill is never backing down, and finance department is also not moving away. So how do you find a solution for that? Mandolin steps in, and while she's neutral to both positions, people cannot agree to her, and she gets rid of her 30K boxes and more or less leaves the desk as a winner by not taking a position and being agreeable by all persons. This is a very wise move, and it's a very important move for negotiation, because being quiet, observing, and making the right move in the right time let you leave this table maybe without any power, but only the thing that she has a referential power side where everybody can agree to her. She's agreeable in the sense that she has no position. And this is power. This is a certain kind of a power, a special kind of a power. So now we have introduced all types of powers. Let's think about in a more structured way and how to bring them together. You see here the definitions for different kind of powers. That's power positions according where they are coming from. Legitimate power is your position. Reward power is I can promote you or I do not promote you. If I have the power to promote you, you better do what I want you to do, or you never get promoted. Bonuses, pay raises, all works in this direction. That are the classical reward tools to make people do what you want them to do. Coercive power is the fear of losing one job, for example. It's threatening people. Here, it's a kind of threatening. I mean, reward is also threatening in the sense that you don't get the reward is threatening, but cohesive power is more direct. Threatening in the sense, it's adding directly some harm. Reward power means just take something good away from you. If you don't get the bonus, nobody has done anything bad to you. But if I take you the job, then I literally take something from you. So let's see the other powers. That's powers within the person. We already talked about the expert person. You can't transfer expert. You can transfer reward power and position power, but not expert power. That's not going to work. And referent power comes from the fact that people naturally trust in certain persons. So if somebody trusts in you or not cannot be transferred to somebody else. But if I trust that you know what we should do, then I follow you. That's more or less the idea behind these power circles. So what kind of where does sources of power and the leader-follower situation comes into play? If you think about the leaders are definitely good if they have expert powers, because then they know what they do, and this is always appealing. The interesting thing is, if you think about the situation, then we put things in like legitimate power. This is more or less as a framing relevant, because you might be if you are the doorman at the cinema who checks the tickets, then you're a very powerful person at the cinema door, because here you check the tickets and you say you can get in or you can't get in. Or you're very powerful at a club where you say, no, you can't get in with, we have dress code, not with these shoes. You are powerful at the door as the bouncer, but you're not powerful anywhere else. It's a power that is very much depending on the situation. This is also important for expert power and other things. The logic is here. Legitimate power is defined by situations. A doctor is legitimate expert within his within his praxis. And then we have certain overlaps. Cohesive power and referential power. For referential power, you need followers. For cohesive power, you must be legitimate to fire somebody, otherwise you can't fire someone. And followers and legitimate to give rewards. Not everybody can reward someone. I can't promise anyone a bonus if I'm not legitimate in particular situations to give these bonuses. So we can bring leader and follower together in a framework with the leader power. But this is actually not what I would like to emphasize. I would like to emphasize those things. This is a distribution of power. You see a leader who has a particular tapping in particular power sources. Normally you have more than one. You might be very small on expert and very strong on legitimate or role power, but you always have a mixture. Which person has this mixture? What do you think? What kind of leader has such a mixture of power sources? Any idea? Write it in the chat. Who could this be?
I think the good leader have the higher mark of experts and reference. The leader.
Which leader? Which leader would this be? Can you repeat that? Because you see, we have here a person who has relatively high legitimate power, not so high reward power, a lot of cohesive power, a little bit expert power, and reference power. What kind of profession, what kind of person could this be?
You mean that you want a specific professor?
Yes. Yeah, profession, person. In which role do you need such distribution of power sources? CEO. Yes, he definitely is strong and legitimate because he's the CEO. If he is strong and cohesive, then he's definitely a CEO who fires you if you don't do what you should do. But he could do that because he's legitimate. But it's definitely a CEO who demands a lot of performance, and he kicks you out if you not perform. That's what he uses his cohesive element. Reference power. Yeah, people not really trust him, and he's not really an expert. He's not really knowing what he is doing, but he is legitimate there. He's threatening you, and he can reward you. Yes, maybe military general. I really hope that military generals are experts in what they are doing, because they're doing really threatening stuff with heavy weapons and so on. They should know what they are doing. But technically, from the leadership style that he exposes, is role power, sanctioning you if you don't do the wrong things, but rewarding you if you follow. Could fit into the into the military. Yes, would fit. Also into the CEO. An accountant. Yeah, but the problem here in this profile is that the guy is not an expert. I really would think that accountants should know what they are doing. That's really complex what they are doing. Just threatening people is not enough to be a good accountant. But if it is somebody who checking your text statements, then he don't need to understand much. He just needs to check certain boxes, and he figures out that you put in wrong values in the boxes, then he definitely threatens you with a big fine. In this sense, maybe a tax accountant could be this profile. The point here is very much, is it a good profile? In some instances, yes. The question is, for the organization that you are talking, is this the profile of a good CEO? If yes, perfectly fine. But I guess for many organizations, a CEO, we would probably hope to be a stronger expert and to be a stronger referent power source user, where people naturally trust and follow. For military, it's an expert. Maybe it's enough for the rank or the military purpose. Then military would be absolutely fine. I don't know how complex the particular accountant work is, but this could also fit. The point is understanding the power sources that somebody can utilize gives you an idea if this person fits to the tasks that you have and the followers that you have. There are three outcomes, and this is again something that I would like to stress here. Position power leads, if appropriate use, to compliance. If it is excessive use, to resistance. The vice president that we have seen in the first case used it too extensive, what leads to resistance. That's the problems with the corporate culture. If you turn it down a notch, you might get compliance. Personal power, expert and reference power, is the only thing that leads to commitment. And this is a very important conclusion here. You want to have commitment. If you have commitment, people normally comply. A highly committed person complies to the rules, not by you because you force the person to commit to the rules. No, she's complying with the rules because she believes that these rules are in there for a purpose, and to comply shows commitment to the goals of the company, to the purpose of the company. That's why she complies. In this sense, is the way forward to focusing on personal power rather than on position power. The position power is the thing that you use the first day because you have fear, because that's the only thing that you have, because they don't know you and you have to protect yourself. Fair enough, I give you that. That makes sense to do that. But you want to get rid of that as soon as possible because you want to have commitment. That's a much better thing to achieve. And you can only achieve that if you build up the trust, if you build up expertise, and if you step in this way into the organization. That's the destination. Does this make sense from everything that we have discussed? That's how you want to negotiate. You don't want to be chill who threaten people. You don't want to do everything have just one tool, and this is rewards, because if they don't work anymore, you promote me and you can't promote me higher, then you don't have power anymore. I have everything that I can get from you, and if you run out of reward power, then there is nothing else that you have as a power source. And this is a really, really critical thing to understand. What do you think about this slide? Does this slide make sense for you, or do you disagree? I would say it makes sense. It makes really a lot of sense. That's all that I'm talking about. And it's the way how to achieve that. If you think about style as an individual expression, and here we are again coming back to the style perspective. Style is individual. Style is an individual thing in the sense that it is linked to you and your personality, your values, as we have discussed it. So it is capable of generating commitment. If you think about the collective level, collectively seen is you are the new vice president, because that is how the organization's rules are. You sit in place. That's a collective perception of your role and so on, not an individual expression. So we have the style elements here again. You mean compass? Can you elaborate on what you mean with compass? Here in the chat.
It's just the shape of it. It's the shape of it look like the compass, and also it's the shape, but also the how do you say, like the elements, the indicators. Compliant resistance is like, and the position of power is a bit like you have to find which positions or find the direction in different situations by moving the compass.
That's actually a very nice metaphor, because it spells out that you have to navigate something, because compass is normally used to navigate something, and then you're probably right. It's more navigation to just and readjust certain things than and then it might work than going for with your needle in any of those extremes. What I actually would like to do for the last few minutes is I would like you to read the case, or should we keep the case for later? No, we should read the case. You need 15 minutes to read the case. Turn the ship around A. There's A and B. We will read A now and B in the next session. So this is introducing leadership on a submarine, and then moving on to Herschel Bléchard's situational leadership approach. I guess you need 15 minutes. You find it on Canvas. It's the A case from Turn the Ship Around. You should answer those 5 questions. Try, I guess 15. Let me see if this makes sense from a time perspective. It's 5 pages, probably not. So we need to have, let's do 20 minutes for the case reading and start answering the first 3 questions. Then we move on and do everything else in the next session. So 20 minutes to read the case and answer the first 3 questions. We need the case next session as well, because there's an A and a B case, and they build on each other. So please be back at, let me see, it's 9:15. 9:15, and then we start discussing the first 3 questions, and the next case and the next questions will come in the next session. Turn the ship around A. It's about leadership on a submarine. See you in, at 9:15 Vietnam time.
Okay, see you.
Nuclear submarine visionary.
So you at least read the case. Let's start with this. We have a second on working on submarine with the same protagonists. What you read in the case and what you discussed is failure. Why has he failed? What's going on? What do you think about Commander Paris and Louis David? That's probably the first question. What is going on the submarine and those two guys? What do you think? And this, by the way, is the starting for Hansi Blechar's leadership model that we will discuss in the next session more in depth. So what would you say? What is going on this ship? It's not a ship, it's a submarine. And how would you characterize a submarine or the work on a submarine? Or what is your anticipation of that if you have not worked on an actual submarine?
Probably a very vertical way of leading with
Yes.
a top-down way of doing things.
Yes, and by the way, for a reason. That is absolutely right, but it's for a reason. There are certain work environments, like an airplane, which is very much decisive that you follow a strict protocol instead of discussing what would be the best solution and then choosing something. That's not the right place. You do what has been proven to be the best, because if you do make a mistake by discussing and coming to a different conclusion for whatsoever reason, then you have a real issue on an airplane and also on an submarine. That work environments which do not tolerate any kind of mistakes, or at least no major mistakes. They have severe ramifications for everybody on the submarine. So these environments tend to have strict protocols. It's the same in a hospital where you should follow certain protocols, because these are designed to reduce the risk as much as possible. And if the protocols work, then we don't need your personal opinion on that. Do what has been statistically proven to be the most safest thing. There is an issue with that, and the issue is that working in aviation or working on a submarine is definitely such an environment. But not everything that you do on a subway needs to fall under the same restrict protocol rules. If it's a nuclear ship, so everything that deals with the nuclear power is risky, and you have to have a protocol without any doubt. But if you work in the canteen and just serving the food, the ship is not sinking because your potatoes are too mashed up. The point is, not everything needs to apply everywhere in the same way, but these environments tend to take one principle and apply it through the whole ship. I'm mostly certain that the ship canteen has the same top-down approach than everything else. And here we see what Louis David coming in, because what has Louis David discovered with the interaction with Paris, the commander? What would you say about Louis Davis? We talk about power here, and a particular kind of power. And what from a power perspective has Commander Paris did? What did Commander Paris from a power perspective? He wants his team to take initiatives. Yeah, absolutely right. You can frame this as he empowered others. He turned things around. What we had expect on the ship is that the power comes top down, but not with Paris. Paris empowered David Lewis to take own decisions or initiatives. This is also power, because somebody is doing something, moving things forward as you intended, but not by exposing you power, but by letting the person expose power. And sometimes persons in an organization know you more than you know. So why not empowering them and giving them in the small field the opportunity to make the decisions? That's a very wise move. And it had some lasting effect on Lewis, on David Lewis. The question is why why was there such a long-lasting effect of Paris or the Palace or whatever it is called on Louis David? Why do you think Palace or the commander resonated so strong with Louis David that he even applies that years after that experience?
It's because he was not used at all to this kind of doing things. So he was very happy to see that he had some power, even though he was not a top official.
Yes, sometimes when I'm reading that, it let me feel like he was, he felt empowered. It resonated with him, and he probably had a different approach, a different belief, philosophy, I don't know, values about how people should interact. Not like a machine that you pull on the one handle and then something else happened because there is a clear line of command. It is more or less, an empowered and self-directed way of interacting with people. I somehow feel sorry for Louis David, because he gets himself into the completely wrong environment, because people tick differently in this environment and they want to have different things in this environment. Now that he once in, I don't know, 10 years discovered that things could be different, must have a huge impact of him, because what he learned and probably was not too happy with, because that's not his approach that he experienced on a daily basis, could look differently. And the commander was the proof that change is possible, or another world is possible, so to say, on the submarine. These things are empowering. What do you think is the risk of empowering, or what are what is the risk of empowering, and how to deal with those risks of empowering others? Are there risks or are there no risks? I mean, the benefits should be clear. You get a solution, the people get more happy, they get more involved. But what will be the downsides, the risks?
Many people.
Excuse me?
And then things get out of control.
Things get out of control. Sorry, you are not loud. It's a really low level of volume that you have. Can you be really loud so that we all can understand that? There must be something with your microphone. But what I get is that things getting out of control. This would be definitely true. Yes, it's a question of mistakes, that not meeting the deadlines, and the jobs being messed up. Yes, the point is, let me read up the things that you made mentioned here: get out of control, get messed up, and so on. If you empower people and tell them they can do things differently, then you accept that you lose here to control and give up control to others. That's what you do. You do that because you hope that you get better, quicker, cheaper results back. That's why you hope, what you hope for. But sometimes people mess it up. Yes, that's right. Sometimes they make mistakes. And if you tell the other side, do what you think is right, and the side does what the side thinks is right, then you can't blame them. It's not possible to blame them anymore because you tell them, do what you want. How should I blame them? This has a problem for many organizations and for many individuals as well, because you must accept and tolerate that you get wrong results, and the only person you can blame it to you is yourself. You give the other persons the choice and they make their choice. That's what you have to live with then. This is a risk. That is really a risk, and that's why it's not suitable in every instance, because there where you can't have decisions that fail, you can't work on these grounds. This is one thing that comes as a risk. What do you think is another risk with that? You're definitely right. Empowering others means you give them control and you accept what they are doing with control. The other thing is that you need a certain kind of people who want to take the control, as you have seen in the case here. If some people prefer to get a clear order and fulfill the order and be happy once everything is fulfilled and they don't have to worry about something. Clear instructions, and that's it. If you deal with these kind of people, it's powering as the risk that they take that as a serious threat. Say, oh, no, oh my God, now I have to make my own decision. But when is something going wrong, and then they blame it maybe on me, and I don't know what to do. And should I really take these risks? It would be easier to have somebody tell me what I should do, and I have a happy life. These people exist, and empowerment has the risk that they don't do anything. Like we have seen in the case, they wish their old commander back. This is what we need to find out from this empowerment and the power use is, how can we build them into a leadership style, and when do they fit? I mean, the power would be telling them what they should do. The empowerment would then enabling to do what they think is best. Leadership can express those things. Empowering is very debated in style, in how you do things, in how you give a role model, in which values do you prefer? I mean, live and enforce. I know we're running out of time, so I just give you one example that I want to highlight, and we will start with this in the next session to dive deeper into the rest of the question in introducing the other cases. If people don't know what they should do, because you tell them, do what you think is best. And this is intimidating for some people, because now they need to make decision, and then people see the outcome of their decision, and then people might think, look, they have messed things up with what they have done. And this is something many people don't want to be exposed. You help those people if you have a clear leadership style, because the style in itself gives them direction. The style tells them, okay, these are the values, the norms. The decision that I make now is brought down to a clear line. They know about the pattern, how you approach things, and they can reproduce that. So it's not everything is possible, only a few things are possible, and to choose from them, it makes it much more unlikely to get it wrong, because it reduces the space of opportunities. I tell you with my last sentence, and then I wish you a nice evening, what I mean with, if you apply that, for example, to the Godfather and his approach to lead the family or the mafia. If the Godfather tells you, do what you think it's the right thing to do, then you automatically mean you can do everything that you want, except all those things who threaten the family, who are disloyal to the family, you undermine the value, the community of the family, or brings any risk to the family from law enforcement and those things. That's no-goes. You can take them off the table. They never been accepted by the Godfather. That's the things you should not come up. So from 100 things that you can choose from, you now can only choose from 3 things. And it makes your life easier and gives you direction in which way you should head. Style is helping here when it comes to empowerment. I will elaborate on that in the next session. For this session, again, we're running a little bit out of time because we now shifted, because we took something in from the last session into this session. Yeah, what we eventually will do for the next session as well. There is one thing, and this is the last thing that I want you to consider. There is a case. You only should read the World Wrestling Federation It's a case. You could watch this video on YouTube, or you. Sorry, I don't sharing my screen anymore, right? Let me tell you this as the, so to say, homework. There's a video to watch. Easy to watch. Is a documentary about those guy. Please watch the video, and if you have time, read the case, the World Wrestling Federation. Vince McCain versus Bret the Hitman Hart. This is subject to our discussion the next time, because here is negotiation, leadership, and all those things involved. So this being said, any questions so far, or is everything clear? Because if everything is clear, then there's no reason for me to hold you from your evening.
No question.
Yeah, I see it's quite clear.
Okay, perfect. Then have a wonderful evening, and be moving on with the power and the style, and then with this particular case to put it yeah, more in context, and Hansi Blochard as well. Thanks very much for your attention. Enjoy the rest of your day, and see you next time. Bye.
So,
Thank you. Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor.